Welcome to Voices from the Abyss. If you're listening tonight, you're not alone. Beneath every stretch of open water, there are depths we've never seen and things we've never discovered. Tonight's story begins in complete darkness, miles below the surface, where something ancient is still moving. So settle in, get comfortable, and listen closely, because far below you, something is awake. The deep ocean has always inspired mythology. Ancient civilizations filled the dark beneath the waves with sleeping gods, world serpents, and things so large they could swallow ships whole. Most of us grow out of those fears. We replace them with sonar maps, pressure readings, scientific names. But sometimes, beneath all the measurements and machinery, the old stories are still waiting. The Ashra's instruments had been reading the same thing for 6 hours. Nothing. Devin Marsh logged the seismic data for the 4th time, cross-referencing it against the baseline readings from the buoy array topside. The numbers were consistent, boringly and maddeningly consistent. "Tell me something I don't know," he muttered at the screen. "You have a receding hairline." Marcus Oakford didn't look up from the sonar panel. He was eating a protein bar with the focused dedication of a man who had been doing this too long to find it interesting. "I have a distinguished temple situation. Your wife told you that." "My wife is a smart woman." Marcus snorted. He pulled up the thermal overlay and squinted at it. Still nothing. Plate stress reads normal. Microfracture activity is actually lower than the regional average. He took another bite. "We came all the way down here for a geological shrug. The initial readings were probably instrument error. You know Costello's buoys have been glitching since March." Devin leaned back and rubbed his eyes. Marcus was probably right. He usually was about the boring explanation. That was why they worked well together. Marcus pulled towards the mundane, Devin pulled towards the extraordinary. And somewhere in the middle, they usually found the truth. The Ashra groaned faintly around them, her hull adjusting to pressure. 4,000 meters down, the ocean floor was a gray wasteland of silt and silence on the external cameras. Nothing moved. Nothing really lived down here. "Log it and surface?" Marcus asked. "Log it and surface," Devin agreed. Marcus keyed the ascent sequence. The ballast tanks began cycling. Devin started filling out the preliminary report. Anomalous seismic readings, source unidentified, no structural plate irregularities observed at depth. The kind of report that would get filled out and forgotten inside a week. He was thinking about his daughter. Nora had a soccer game Saturday. He'd promised he'd be back in time. He was going to make it. They were at roughly 2,000 meters when Marcus said, "Huh." Devin looked up. Marcus was staring at the external camera feed, port side, pointing out into open water. "What?" "Probably nothing." But Marcus had stopped chewing. Devin rolled his chair over. The camera was pointed into darkness. The Ashra's exterior lights reached maybe 15 meters in any direction, and beyond that was the absolute black of the deep ocean. There was nothing to see. Except... is that? I don't know. At the edge of the light, right at the boundary where illumination dissolved into void, there was a surface? Something vast and dark and close. Or it looked close. Devin's brain kept trying to recognize what it could be. A rock formation, a thermal plume, a trick of particulate in the water. It wasn't any of those things. Marcus switched on the floodlights. The extra lumens punched out 30 meters. They were both silent. It was a curved surface, dark. The texture was not scales exactly, not skin exactly either. It was something in between. Something that looked somewhere between geology and living matter. It looked ancient, like it had been in the same spot since before the oceans came to be. It filled the entire left side of the camera feed. It was not a wall, and it was not the sea floor. And then it moved. Not dramatically. It just shifted, like a sleeping animal. A slow tectonic adjustment that sent a pressure wave through the water hard enough to shudder the Ashra on her axis. Devin grabbed the console. The instrument stuttered. The surface continued to move, sliding past the camera, on and on and on. More and more of it. How could there be more of it? Devin's mind was doing a kind of frantic geometry, trying to calculate the sheer size of what he was seeing. Every time his mind presented an answer, he discarded it, because the answer was insane. Because nothing was that large. Because it stopped. The water went still. What was in the camera feed now was not a surface. It was an eye. Devin had spent 11 years studying the deep ocean. He had seen giant squid. He had seen oarfish, 6 meters long, drifting like silver ghosts. He had seen firsthand that the ocean was full of enormity. But he had never felt enormity. His body had never reacted to enormity. Until now. The eye was larger than the Ashra. It was larger than the Ashra by a magnitude he could not comprehend. It was dark gold at the iris, not bioluminescent, not reflective, just faintly and horribly lit from within. The pupil was a vertical slit the size of a shipping container, and it was looking at them. Not scanning, not the empty gaze of a fish. Looking, considering. The Ashra's ascent alarm began to ping. They had drifted off the ascent vector. Marcus didn't touch it. Neither of them moved. The eye didn't move. Devin noticed that he had stopped breathing. He made himself inhale. The air tasted metallic and wrong, recycled through a machine, and suddenly, that felt unbearable. Being sealed in this metal shell, this absurd, fragile capsule, and the thought arrived with a horrific clarity. It could end us without noticing. The same way you could end an ant without noticing. He thought about Nora's soccer game. "Marcus," he said. His voice was very quiet and very even. "Emergency ascent." Marcus moved. The ascent took 19 minutes. Devin had made the same trip dozens of times. He knew the math. He knew the decompression tolerances, the ballast ratios, the precise physics of a controlled emergency surface. He had run the numbers so many times that he didn't have to actually calculate them anymore. His mind could not do arithmetic right now. His hands were on the console, and they were not shaking, but something was wrong with his thinking. Thoughts arrived and then dissolved before he could acknowledge them. He would begin a sentence in his head and find the end of it missing. He kept starting to calculate their ascent rate and arrived nowhere. He knew that this was the fear, that his brain was doing something instinctive and chemical, flooding itself with signals that were designed for running, for climbing, for physical escape, and unable to find a place to put all that electricity. He breathed. He watched the depth gauge tick upward. Marcus hadn't spoken since the eye. At 1,500 meters, the Ashra shuddered. Not a pressure adjustment, a reaction from something external. A wave of force that moved through the water and through the hull and through Devin's body. A subsonic pulse that he felt in his skull, in the backs of his eyes, deep in his chest cavity, in a way that felt like being struck. Like every organ in his body had shifted slightly out of place. The instruments went haywire. Depth readings spiked to 0, then to 9,000, then stabilized. The compass spun. The sonar return bloomed into solid white. Not a reading, not data, just obliteration. The sonar was trying to report something far more massive than it was designed to read. "What was that?" Marcus said. It wasn't really a question. "Keep ascending," Devin said. At 900 meters, it happened again. Stronger. Devin's vision went gray at the edges for a moment, and he gripped the console and waited it out. Beside him, Marcus made a sound that was not quite a word. The Ashra's interior lights flickered, dimmed, then held. A fine mist of condensation shook loose from the ceiling and drifted down through the cabin. The coffee in Marcus's mug, sitting forgotten in its holder, was vibrating in concentric rings. Devin stared at those rings. His mind, which was very good at pattern recognition, at finding signal in noise, at the cold work of understanding what data meant. His mind tried to tell him what the rings meant, what was producing them, what was moving down there in the dark beneath them, with enough mass to send ground tremors through 4,000 meters of water. He looked away from the mug. At 400 meters, the water changed color. Not dramatically, or all at once. The external cameras pointing upward now, toward the surface, showed a greenish cast to the water that hadn't been there before. It was wrong. Biologically wrong. The open Atlantic at this depth was a specific shade of deep blue-black that Devon had seen more times than he could count. This was not that. This was something being introduced into the water column from below. Something on a scale that could tint the ocean. Marcus? I see it. Don't think about it. Okay. Neither of them said anything else. The Ashra hit the surface at 09:14, and Marcus had the hatch open before the rocking had stabilized. Both of them up into salt air and gray morning sky. The smell hit Devon first. He had been at sea for most of his adult life. He knew every iteration of ocean smell. The clean ozone of open water, the sulfur of a thermal vent, the rot sweetness of a dead zone, the mineral sharpness of a storm front coming in. He had a catalog of recognition. This was not in his catalog. It was ancient, not rot. Rot was a process, a living thing breaking down into its individual components. This was older than rot. This was the smell of something that had existed long before the process that produced rot had evolved to exist. It enveloped him. It sat in his sinuses. He breathed through his mouth, and that was worse. He could taste it, and some primitive part of him was screaming to get back inside the sub, seal the hatch, and filter the air. He stayed on the hull and grabbed the radio. Ashra to Haugen. We need immediate retrieval. Emergency protocol. Get the crane ready. Haugen copies. Ashra, what's your situation? Just get the crane ready. All possible speed. Move north and do not stop moving. A pause. Raise whoever you can. Raise NOAA, the Institute, Coast Guard, everyone. The ocean around them started moving. Not waves. The surface chop was normal. The Ashra had disturbed the water on ascent. But this was below that. Movement from the deep was wrong. A slow directional displacement, water being pushed away from a point southeast of them. The Ashra rose on a swell that had no wind behind it. No meteorological cause. That came from below and kept coming. Slow and enormous. Like breathing. Like something breathing. Devon looked at Marcus. Marcus was looking at the water. His face had gone blank. Devin recognized that look from 11 years of working with Marcus. He was processing something he hadn't seen before. Then the sound started. It began below the range of hearing. Devin felt it in his sternum before he registered it with his ears. A vibration that climbed up through the hull of the Ashra and into the soles of his feet. It traveled up through his skeleton and hit his skull as pressure, as the physical sensation of something immense producing noise. Then it crossed the threshold into hearing, and it was not a roar, not a call. It was the sound of mass. The sound of something so large that its movement through the world was itself a noise. The ocean split open. 2 kilometers southeast, the surface opened as a displacement of water shoved away in every direction by something ascending through it. Massive, impatient. The column of disturbed water rose 30 meters, 40, 50, white and churning, and from its center came the shape rising through its own wake, shedding the Atlantic off its surface like a light rain, an amount of water that would swallow cities. And it kept rising and rising, and Marcus sat down. He sat down on the hull suddenly, like his legs were no longer interested in participating. Devin stayed standing. He didn't know why. Some internal stubbornness, some internal refusal. The head alone, just the head, was above the cloud layer now. Devin could see clouds breaking around it, the gray Atlantic overcast parting, and the morning light coming through them in a way Devin had never seen. The shape greedily swallowing the light. Even from this distance, Devin could see things moving along its surface that did not remain the same shape long enough to understand. And the eye, from 2 kilometers, against the immensity of what surrounded it. The eye found them. He knew it. He could not have explained how he knew it. But the same animal certainty that had gripped him in the submersible seized him again. The absolute, soul-stopping knowledge of being seen, and every hair on his body stood up. His adrenal system reacted as a full-body electric surge, every muscle suddenly ready to do something, anything. And there was nothing to do. There was nowhere to go. They were on the ocean. His hand found the radio. He keyed it. He didn't know who he was transmitting to. The Haugen frequency? The open emergency channel? The international distress band? All of it. Everything. Everyone. "This is Dr. Devin Marsh," he said. His voice was steady. "Aboard research submersible Ashra, approximately 600 kilometers west-southwest of Ireland." The thing was still rising. How could it still be rising? I am transmitting on all available frequencies. I need whoever is receiving this to understand. He stopped. How? How could he put it into words? He had spent his entire career in the precise work of description, of translating the physical world into data, into words, into something transmissible. He had written hundreds of reports. He had testified before committees. He was good at this. Yet, he had nothing. There is something rising from the ocean, he said. I cannot give you a scale reference that will be comprehensible. Anything I tell you, any number I give you, will be insufficient. A pause. The sound was continuous now. That deep subsonic pressure, and he could feel it in his jaw when he spoke. I have read the old accounts. I thought I understood what they were describing. I want you to know, whoever is hearing this, I want you to know that no one understood. No account that has ever been written. His voice caught. He steadied it. No account comes close. He lowered the radio for a moment. The thing was still rising. His daughter drew pictures on Saturday mornings before anyone else was awake. She left them on the kitchen table for him to find. Dogs, mostly. She wanted a dog. He had been saying soon for 2 years. He should have gotten the dog. I have a wife, he said into the radio. Her name is Claire. I have a daughter. Her name is Nora. She's 7. He watched the clouds continue to break apart around something that only existed in legend. I don't think I'm going to make it to the soccer game. He lowered the radio. Marcus was sitting with his forearms on his knees, head down, not looking at the horizon anymore. Devin looked at him for a moment, then he sat down too. The hull of the Ashra was cold through his clothes. The sound continued. The water around them continued its impossible, sourceless churning. He thought about the legends. He had loved the legends as a kid. The idea of them, the romance of something vast and sleeping in the deep places. He had carried that love into his career, the way you carry a childhood thing, privately, a little embarrassed by it, but unwilling to let it go entirely. He had genuinely never considered the other side of it. What it would mean. What waking meant. If sleeping was real. Hey, Marcus said. His voice was rough. Yeah? Best 11 years of my career. Devin looked at him. Marcus was still staring at the deck. Yeah, Devin said. Mine too. And we are Please stand by. We are receiving reports simultaneously from vessels across the North Atlantic, from coastal monitoring stations in Portugal, the Canary Islands, Morocco, from the United States Coast Guard. Reports of a... We are looking at... We have footage coming in now from a cargo vessel, the Themis Star, currently approximately 400 kilometers from the reported position. And the footage is... We are... Please stand by. We have received confirmation from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration of seismic displacement readings that their spokesperson describes as, and I quote, outside every parameter of our modeling. We have received confirmation from the European Mediterranean Seismological Center of the same. We are receiving reports from commercial airline pilots at cruising altitude describing something visible above the cloud layer. We have received word from NASA. The crew of the International Space Station, currently over the North Atlantic on their orbital pass. The crew is They are describing something visible from low Earth orbit. This is... Please stay... Please... We are attempting to... Please stand by. On the hull of the Astra, Devon Marsh sat beside his oldest friend and watched the sky finish changing. The horizon to the southeast was gone. Not obscured. Gone completely. Replaced. Where the line between ocean and sky had been there was now a wall of dark mass that extended from the water to somewhere above the cloud ceiling and kept going. And the light, the morning light, was being consumed by it, broken into amber shafts that fell at wrong angles across the water. And the shadows it cast moved as it moved, slow and continent-wide. The sound filled everything now. Not loud exactly. Loud was not the effect of the sound. The sound was something you felt in your skeleton, in the fluid of your inner ear, in the chambers of your heart as they contracted and expanded. It had long since stopped being a sound he was hearing and became a condition of the world, like pressure, like temperature, like gravity. The water around the Ashra had gone completely still, the way water goes still in certain moments of very great pressure, flat and dark and motionless in every direction, an unnatural stillness, the stillness of a world holding its breath. Devon thought about Nora's drawings, dogs and suns, and a family of stick figures, tacked to the refrigerator with the little fruit magnets Claire collected. He thought about the weight of Nora's head against his shoulder when she fell asleep on the couch during movie night, the way she got heavier when she was fully out. He thought about a morning 6 weeks ago, a nothing morning, ordinary, standing in the kitchen while the coffee brewed, and Claire was reading at the table, and he had looked at her and thought, this is it. This is the whole thing. And then his coffee was done, and he stopped thinking and went to work. He wished he had said it out loud. The world did not end quickly. It was patient about it. That was the thing the legends had never gotten right, had never communicated, because the people writing them were too small to imagine patience on this scale. The patience of something that had existed before the first fish crawled out of the water, before the water. The patience of deep time made physical, made present, made here. The figure continued to rise, and the world went dark. Thank you for listening to Voices from the Abyss. If you enjoyed tonight's story, make sure to follow so you don't miss what rises next. And if you find yourself near the water, listening, just remember, not everything beneath the surface is asleep. Good night.